the new thing that people who read the New Yorker and write for the New Yorker both seem to be accumulating. But chickens themselves aren't anything new. Where can we first pick up the thread of human-chicken cohabitation?
Chickens have been domesticated practically forever. They have existed, I can't give you the date, but they've existed as domesticated animals for thousands of years. And typically, I mean, people only had eggs if they had chickens. In this country, everybody had chickens for a long, long time. You didn't really buy eggs in the supermarket. They were seasonal. You had eggs during the laying season. Chickens don't lay eggs all year round. And even if you had a cattle farm or you just grew some vegetables, you'd always have a couple of chickens. And they're easy to take care of. You had them around. They laid eggs. When they were done laying eggs, you ate them. I mean, that was... and women...
You ate them, the chickens.
Yeah,
okay.
I should have punctuated that. You collected the eggs, comma, and then when the chickens no longer laid eggs, comma, you ate the chickens.
I love interviewing writers. They use punctuation.
Yeah, right. But I just, as an aside, I want to say that any woman who makes any connection to menopause in that sentence is probably very disturbed. But anyway, but actually, speaking of women, women typically kept chickens. They were part of a kitchen garden. You know, you'd grow a few tomatoes, a little bit of lettuce, and you had 3 or 4 chickens, and you'd go out and collect the eggs, and that's how people had them. When there was a big migration in this country to cities and a movement out of rural areas, people generally brought chickens with them. They didn't bring their cows, or sheep or goats, but they often brought chickens. So there were a lot of chickens in a lot of cities.
City chickens.
Yeah, the ones on the stick that were really made of veal.
Right. Yeah,
but chickens were never glamorous. They were the cheapest form of livestock. There was nothing, no high dollar association with them the way cattle or horses. They were just this little extra animal you had around. So the reinvention of them as a chic accessory and part of the whole locavore movement is fascinating, because I would say no other animal has enjoyed such a fabulous PR rebirth.
Well, I want to talk about your role as a chicken enabler in contemporary society in a little bit. But so when did this stop, though? Because that's not in my lifetime. People just had chickens.
Yeah, no. In the 50s, as people moved into suburbs, keeping chickens was strictly both déclassé and generally not allowed. And I tried to conjure the image of, say, Betty and Don Draper in their Mamaroneck suburb with chickens. You know, it was not part, I mean, people in the 50s, part of what people imagined made them modern was having no association with a rural past. And in fact, there are a lot of philosophers who draw the line in our concept of what modern is as the point at which animals were no longer utilitarian. You had a pet dog, usually some little fluffy thing that sat around, but it didn't work. And you didn't have work animals. So if you were in the suburbs, I mean, I know I grew up in a suburb, and when I first told my parents I was getting chickens, I think they thought, where did we go wrong? What do you mean you're getting chickens? It was like, if I'd said I'm getting a horse, they would have thought, oh, you always loved horses. Right. But a chicken? I mean, it was, you know, they were associated with poor farmers had chickens. There was nothing fancy about it. So they disappeared, and also that's when factory farming took off. And the connection with chickens was that they were raised in gigantic factory farms, and it even made them less desirable, I think.
Yeah.
The chickens I see in the suburban neighborhoods, none of them are white. You know, they're all like,
Right.
They're very, very beautiful, colorful. It's like people having parrots out on the curb. You know?
Oh yeah, and you know, my chickens they're beautiful. They're all these weird, odd breeds, and you don't really see the factory chickens are, you know, classic white
Right.
leghorns. And
So it's still a class thing, like the déclassé chicken
yeah,
still exists.
of course.
It's a caste system for chickens. So why did you decide to get chickens?
You know, I left Manhattan a couple of years ago and I moved upstate, and suddenly was living out in the country, had a lot of land, and I of course thought, well, I'm going to get a horse now, finally, after all of these years of disappointment and you know, maddening begging of my parents, and never got the horse, and I thought, man, a horse is a lot of work. I started worrying. And a friend had chickens. Now, I had never given chickens a thought except, do they need more salt? You know, that I had certain, sorry, girls at home. But I had never thought of them as something fun or easy. And the friend of mine said, oh my God, chickens, they're so easy and they're really fun. Well, the idea of a chicken having a personality was news to me. So I started looking around, and of course, you know, in the age of Google, you put in cute chickens, or as I did, you know, cool looking chicken houses, and you know, you get 18 million hits, and you think, I guess there's something going on
I've
there.
struck a nerve.
I guess there are chickens happening. Also, I give a lot of credit to Martha Stewart, who always kept chickens, always featured them in her magazine, and she brought out these beautiful heritage breeds. And there's no question that she was instrumental in starting to make people think, wow, these are actually beautiful animals. I'd been at the county fair, I saw some gorgeous chickens, and I said, I'm getting them. And there they were. Suddenly I was a chicken owner.
You have something that happens in your brain that makes you want to acquire livestock.
I think it might be chemical.
Yeah?
I don't know. And
Well, I want to get to a reading from your article about chickens in the New Yorker, and in the section you're about to read, the chickens are on the way. You're about to become a part of this movement.
yes, this is a very exciting moment in my life as a chicken enabler, to use your term.
Well, let's have you retire to the performance space here and tell us a story.